Did you see Jack on the way?
He said he might be a few minutes late as well. That's what he said this morning anyway. Good afternoon and welcome to the June 8, 2022 special meeting of the Gates County Board of Commissioners. I am Dr. Anthony Riddick, the 2022 Chair of the Board, and I'm joined by Commissioner Linda Hoffler, Vice Chair, Commissioner Jonathan Craddock, Commissioner Ray Freeman, County Manager Tim Wilson, and Clerk to the Board, Jolitha Chestnut. At this time, I ask Vice Chair Linda Hoffler to lead us in prayer and pledge of allegiance.
Everyone, please stand. Heavenly Father, thank you for the opportunity to come here to do the county's business. Help us have wisdom and discretion as we go through and to make wise decisions. Thank you for all the blessings you have bestowed on this county and hopefully will continue to bestow. We know that we need to, as we look across the nation, we need to concentrate on the things that unite us as a people, not divide us as a people, and that we need to take responsibility for our actions and try to be the good neighbor which our Lord Jesus Christ asked us to be. All these things we ask in thy name for thy sake. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is a special budget work session of the Gates County Board of Commissioners. So during this time, we're going to be discussing the budget for next year, fiscal year 22-23, the proposed budget, so that we can try to get to a balanced budget by June 30th. We received one amendment from the public school system of Gates County, and I asked Dr. Williams to come forth and explain the amendment that he submitted in writing. I see you have your team here. We just want to know about the amendment and the underlying documentation for this request.
Yes, ma'am. This will take 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Good afternoon, Dr. Riddick, commissioners, county manager, and guests. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you again regarding our funding allocation. We do everything in our power to make sure that our schools are a safe place for our students, our faculty, and staff. And just to give you a little bit of idea of what we've done, since my tenure as superintendent back in 2011, we've implemented buzz-in systems in all schools. We've added additional resource officers. We've conducted threat assessments, which are transient and substantive with credible. We've had check-in stations at the front office. I've got Dr. Joy Roddy, who was the superintendent at Sandy Hook Elementary, to come down and hold a regional safety summit. We've conducted active shooter drills in our school system. I've participated in active shooter drills in Perquimans County. On March the 7th, we cut a ribbon to a new school, and I made sure that that school was thoughtfully designed with safety features of an enclosed breezeway, tinted windows, and a main entrance foyer for extra security. Through grant writing, we've installed cameras, radios, metal detectors, halos, SEL training, and school-based therapy. We continue to update our crisis plan, our lockdown drills, safety drills, communication with North Carolina Safer Schools, and of course, county has adopted the statewide rollout for Say Something. We've strengthened our relationship with the law enforcement and State Highway Patrol, and we have a relationship with the Alcohol Law Enforcement Division, Community Corrections, and Special Operations and Intelligence Unit to conduct regular safety checks at our schools. For all these things to work, it takes strong, capable leaders to make sure protocols are followed, drills are conducted, and doors are locked and students are assisted. Students need leaders that they can talk to. They need guidance, they need discipline, and most of all, they need someone who cares about them when they're at school. Knowing that our budget submission may not be fully funded, one of the positions that we cut was an assistant principal to high school. However, with that current situations going on in our schools across the nation, with the safety and mental issues and health issues, we believe that the position is one that we cannot afford to lose. Our high school students now more than ever need school leaders to assist them, not only in their educational efforts, but in their social and emotional needs as well. With that being said, I would like to request an amendment to our fiscal year 22-23 budget submission to include the assistant principal position. The reinstatement of this position will give the students the support that they need as they learn and grow through their teenage years. Thank you for your consideration of this request. And if you have any questions, I have my team behind me who could answer any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions from the commissioners?
Well, indirectly, I mean, it's a question. How is the enrollment at the Gates County schools?
Currently, we have 440 students. We graduated in 8th grade, 121 students that's going to the 9th grade. 85 students are going to walk across the stage Friday evening, but those are not just 85. We've got more graduates that graduated at semester.
Okay.
So we have more than...
Is your enrollment holding pretty steady?
Let me get, Ms. Jordan, would you like to come to the podium and speak with that, please?
I've just been reading in the papers where...
ADM, yes, ma'am.
Yes, current enrollment for district is about 1442, and projected for next year, actually a few more students of about 1496.
Okay, so y'all have been holding steady?
Yes.
I notice in other counties they are not because, well, decreased birth rates in the elementary schools, alternatives to public school with homeschooling and private schools. And so I was just wondering how our enrollment was holding up.
Right, yes.
Any other questions for Dr. Williams and his team?
I heard you mention that you had eliminated that position, and as you're calling it back, why'd you eliminate it?
The reason is we wanted to cut positions since we didn't get the funding that we was hoping to get. We need instructors in the classroom, and a teacher we thought would be more important than an assistant principal. But after what happened in Texas, which is after what happened in Buffalo, after what happened at Sandy Hook, after what happens each and every day, it seems like on breaking news on CNN, we feel like that position, which is unattached from the classroom, but it's attached to the students. So if we can do just one thing to prevent something like that can happen, I think that's important.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, no more questions? Thank you, Dr. Williams. You and your team may return on your golf cart and go back. I saw that golf cart sitting out there. I just said that for the county managers couldn't get me one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. Okay. This was at our desk too. Is this something new?
Correct, just came.
At your seat, you have another handout, revenue and expenditure report for Chowan County Animal Shelter.
Madam Chair, we did just recently receive this, and I'll have finance officer correct me if I'm mistaken here, but there was an inspection done of the facility, and there are issues that must be addressed as a result of that inspection. And I believe the amount was $15,000, is that each of the three localities would contribute for a total of $45,000 to bring the facility into full compliance. They're also asking for a very modest increase in salaries. These are not county employees. I do look at it that they are performing functions for the the citizens of the county. Looking at the percentage, it was just under 5%. And Kimberly, do you remember the exact, it was around $1,200–1,300, somewhere in that neighborhood apiece. And I would support that. That's actually very consistent with the same amount of cost of living increase that I recommended for the county employees.
So you recommend both of these for the animal shelter?
Yes.
Okay, and it's, our share of that would be, you said 15,000 for the repair work that has to be done.
Yes.
And the other amount was,
What was it? 1,300? Come to the,
Good afternoon. Initially, when we put together the budget, Chowan County had not submitted their budget request at that time, so we did best we could based on prior expenses. And when the finance officer did send it to me, it was a little more than, maybe 2,000, 3,000 more than what we had put in the budget. With this revision, taking into account the small salary adjustment, the additional we need to add in for the repairs, it ends up being 9,200 that needs to go in this budget if this is approved.
9,200.
9,235.
Okay.
that's inclusive of the repairs?
Mm-hmm,
And okay.
That's inclusive of the operations and the repairs.
Okay.
And can you repeat that number again? That's how it's-
9,235.
Okay.
I wrote down 15,000 for repairs, that's why I was going, how could that be?
Okay.
We
Any other questions?
initially budgeted 10,000 for the repairs, and if we had gotten their budget request in on time, we would have had what their request was. They had, it was over 11,000 that they had submitted originally.
Okay. Any other questions?
No question, but I had noticed that on the maintenance and repairs, it was 48,000 total for the year. It's highlighted on there.
They have it listed under capital improvement, but these are more repairs than what you would think of as capital improvement.
Okay. All right, thank you. Ms. Outland? Let's back up. The request from the school system, you have it at your desk. It was emailed to you, plus there's another copy on your desk too, so you can read it, and then you heard the presentation from Dr. Williams. So is there any discussion before we go on with there, because this is a new amendment? I know he met with the county manager on Monday. So is there any discussion about his presentation about the additional position for the assistant principal at the high school?
I've seen the email prior to right here. Did he add anything to this conversation other than what's in the email?
He discussed, the climate that they're in right now, and that he took it out of the budget, took one of the instructors out. He he took that out.
They were trying to do without it.
They wanted to, they leaned toward instructional in the classroom instead of like assistant principal. So he said with the current climate and everything that's going on, they revisited their submission and decided that their priority at this time would be the assistant principal to help with security of that building instead of, they could make some moves in the classroom. He did call me on Saturday morning. He sent me an email, and then I texted him, told him to call me. We talked a few minutes, and I advised him to talk to the county manager. And so they had a little meeting, and we invited him to come in and explain it himself. That's his budget, so we didn't want to, make some decisions without hearing from the superintendent and his team. So he's leaning toward more security right now. He can do what he can with his instructional staff.
So I would ask Tim, Tim, in your conversation with him earlier in the week, did he indicate any other areas that he might be able to give?
No, we didn't get into, questions of, the funding of it, just basically what they saw as a need and justification for it.
Any other discussion about the new amendment rather to the school system budget? Okay.
Well, I have worked at the high school for numerous years. That building has a lot of entrances to it. And for most of the time, for the last years I worked there, we had an assistant principal and with all the activities and all the, all the teams that we have and all the activities we have, the administration is, it's hard for 3 people to make sure that someone's covering all the things that we have at the school. So it's kind of hard not to, I don't know how they could do it with, well, they could do it, but something else would go lacking.
Okay.
Now, it was, he didn't say precisely in the email, but they had the position last year. Am I?
Well, yeah,
So
for
it's not a
number,
new position. They were just trying to,
Move them. They were trying to make the balance their budget, and they understood that they could not get everything that they
Right.
asked for, so they prioritized. And once I think the events have evolved over the past week or so, I think they revisited it and decided, according to him, that they would rather have that assistant principal for added security.
so I think the best way to describe the situation is, it's not a new position. In their original budget proposal, they were going to try to eliminate that to save dollars, but
They
To put it
were
in an
looking at, as he
instructional
explained,
position.
to place that money into teachers' instructional classroom. But now, he said, with the recent events, not to mention the historic events, that they revisited that and say that that's something that they believe that they just is not something where they can try to save the money from.
well, they know their programs better than we do. The reasoning for justifying, again, it's not a new position. I don't see how when you think of, you mentioned mental health in here, as well as safety and the climate, national climate and everything. I don't see how we could say no to it.
Okay.
I have noticed by reading across the nation that, and some of the things that other areas have looked at and are doing is add a social worker versus another employee, like a teacher, or
Okay.
even assistant principal. So I kind of expected to hear that a little bit when I heard safety and security and dealing with the students. Is it better for an assistant principal? Is it better for social services work?
well, I think sometimes the assistant principals are generally in control, do this discipline, of that, and sometimes they see children or students who have trouble, emotional issues or trouble, and so they would be the ones that would probably be the first people to deal with a troubled child.
Ray, from a sheriff's department point of view, I'm sure there's not going to be any decrease in representation out there like SRO. Is there anything in the works for a second one or anything?
I've not read anything about any addition from the school system or, you talk about an SRO position.
Yeah, second SRO one. Okay.
And that's why I pay attention to that social services at other locations throughout the country because of safety and also dealing with mental aspects and prior warnings, if you will, that they were looking at that versus will a assistant principal be able to address those natures? Or is a social services person that's trained in that field better option there?
And I will say, as a classroom teacher, if we suspected or thought that a child needed help, we were supposed to contact the notify the correct people in the social services.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that there's little to no opposition to just, it's not a new position, it's just that they reprioritized their ask, they amended their budget to make sure they have that position. Okay. There are no other amendments, County Manager, correct? There's no other amendments, so we just discussed the budget. Everyone has the budget, they took it home with them after the last meeting, and I hope you've gone through it. So if there are any questions for us to discuss during this is not a public hearing. We asked Dr. Williams to come because he did want to, I felt that was his budget, and let him present it, and then we had the one for the animal shelter. So they're the only two amendments. So now we're going to have discussion amongst what you saw in the budget and recommendations or discussions, and County Manager got his pen at the ready to take notes. Ms. Outland's here for questions, if you have questions of the budget from her or his team. So this is why we're here, and the sooner we get started, the sooner we can try to get this budget balanced by June 30th. We have a regular meeting next week, next Wednesday at 5:30. And so they have work to do between now and June 30 to get this budget balanced. So they need to hear from the commissioners. We need to discuss it. If you want to, whoever wants to start, just let me know and I'll recognize you and I'll hear from you.
Well, I just want to make a general statement. The budget looks pretty good. We always would like to, we have to have a balanced budget. We always would like to see it less and not just throw money out there. But from a historical viewpoint, I can remember some times where we cut something $1,000 here or $1,000 there, and unfortunately, those little numbers have very little impact over the overall spending. I mean, you have to do a lot of those $2,500 and $4,000 pushbacks on something, and you find yourself looking at, okay, well, let's reduce postage, by a certain amount. Well, they're not going to use any more postage than what they need to use, and I didn't see, just right off the cuff, if anybody else has anything that they saw that was alarming, I would certainly, be willing to hear it and discuss it. But we've got a few more days to look at it closer. I don't have a recommendation of, hey, did y'all see this? Because I didn't see it. I think the county manager did a pretty good job of, walking his way through it.
One of the things that I have in front of me is a document, a handwritten document from Ms. Outland, and she explained in her own way, fiscal year 21 was 17 million, in dollars. Fiscal year 22 is 18 million. She explained that, and she's here. And it was clear. I was clear about it because I've been, in and out of the budget, talking with the county manager and the staff since December. But when you see it in totality, it does, look like, oh my goodness, what have we done? But really, we have not. And she's here to answer some of the questions that we've had from the last meeting to this meeting as far as the budget. And I would like to say this. They've been working, the staff has been working with the county manager since December on this budget. And we've had a lot of amendments this year that were not in that budget that we had to address. Let's not forget that. We have a lot of asks, a lot of things we had to do. And we're continuing to do things that were not in last year's budget that's driving up the next year's budget. And we don't, in inflation, we got to account for inflation that's in this budget. So they've been working on it since December. They have a few more days, like we know, but we need to hear from Ms. Outland as far as how they came to the recommended budget that they have. And instead of us sitting up here trying to figure it out, she didn't figure it out, she just made it plainer.
Well, one of the things, as you're talking, as we dialogue, things come to my mind. We don't regret, I don't think any of us regret for 1 minute, trying to bring our employees' pay scale up. I don't think we regret that at all. And when we do that, it's a reoccurring cost. So you would expect your previous year's budget to be increased because of that. And then when you look at the proposals that the departments put forward, they had to take in consideration that what they already see before we even get into this next year's budget, that they're paying 20, 25% maybe, or even higher for some things that they purchased last year have already gone up that much. So inflationary increase, and I'm not saying that those numbers are making up that whole number, but those are legitimate considerations when you're comparing 1 year to the next.
Commissioner Freeman?
Well said, because fuel cost. What you were doing in the budget in December, February, does not even show it applies in June.
We should expect the sheriff's gas budget to double. I calculated the other day, I filled up one of my service trucks, and last year at this time, that same, I went back on my computer and looked it up. I didn't just guess at it. That same fill-up would have cost me $58 less, and my truck was not empty when I pulled up there. $58 on one fill-up, and the sheriff department has to fill up over and over and over on multiple vehicles.
Well, it's just not the sheriff's department, anybody with transportation. If you look at PGC, the hauling, even though you have a contract, there's fuel surcharges.
Oh, yeah.
But it's, like I say, it's easy to say fuel, but everything else is double as well, and it's going to continue on.
For a while.
So,
For a while,
so what we're looking at
Hopefully.
here may not look at the bottom line at all.
We also have to remember that we did not or have not had a prioritized budget. We don't prioritize the budget in Gates County. We wait for something to, we're reactive, we're not proactive. So we did not have a planned budget. I haven't seen one. So what we do is we react to whatever the circumstances are. So when you don't have a planned budget, then there are no priorities. You have conflicting and competing priorities all year. That's why that's one of the reasons we have some of those budget amendments, because things happen, you have to pay for them. We don't say no. Sometimes we do, not often. But we try to give the departments what they need to operate day to day. But we don't have a prioritized budget. And one of the outcomes for next year should be a prioritized budget and a plan, 3 to 5 year plan. So we have a capital outlay plan that we know what we're going to do next. We have a budget plan for all the departments. We know what they need next. We know how many staff we're going to need or who's going to retire and replace them. We don't do that here. And that has caused some back and forth, I call it. But we have to balance the budget. We're going to try to do it in a way that we take care of the current prioritized needs that we know we have. As far as our infrastructure, we spend a lot of money. We're going to continue to spend money. We have to. And other things, health and public safety is always on our minds as far as the health and public safety of the citizens, the school system. So we have all these needs, competing needs. What we have to do as commissioners is try to get this budget balanced and do a better job next year and see if we can hold on until this inflation abates, if it ever does. I don't know when it will. But it's going to drive costs up, like Commissioner Freeman said. This is not the end of it. It's not just fuel. And then you have trying to hire people. You know, we know about our salaries, we know that. So we have to do the best we can with what we have right now. And we are not a county that have the resources we have, it's like we have to go back and fix stuff. You know, it's not like let's balance this budget and go. No, we got to look back because we got things we still have to fix. So that's going to take from the coffers too. You just can't just go forward. You got to look back and say, this is the cause and effect. Let's fix this cause so the effect won't be as bad going forward. That's in this budget as well, or should be, because you cannot have a budget and not address what is broken. It's a good example, then I'll be quiet, let Kim come, or if somebody else wants something to say, we're not in a hurry today. Y'all might be, but I'm not. 911, look what happened. We didn't know we had to buy all of this equipment, but we did, and we did it. So look at all the budget amendments we had, and that's cost. Well, that's a recurring cost. It's a one-time purchase, but we got to keep up doing this, and this. So we have to put it in the budget, what's next. So as we sit here and do that, we have to be very mindful of that. Now we have water and wastewater, same thing. We got to fix it. So you see these budget amendments, when you see your board packet next week, you see all the money we're spending. Well, that's not going to stop. Because as we continue to fix and upgrade our infrastructure, you're going to find more things going to have to be replaced. It's going to cost more than it would have cost last year, 10 years ago. And we have to build into this budget, the next year's budget, again, to prepare for the cost of maintaining what you're doing. So those are what my thoughts right now. We're not trying to cut anybody out of anything. I think one of the suggestions that Commissioner Craddock had was looking at what was it, 5% across the board decrease. But in my experience, when you do that, you're doing two things. You're trying to be fair. No, you're trying to be equal, but it's not fair. Because some of the departments maybe haven't had an increase in years. So you're going to cut them another 5. Then there are other departments may have gotten what they needed last year. Well, they can absorb the 5% because they got 10% last year. So when you do that, when you try to do it the humane way, that's what they used to call it back in the day, it's not fair. It's equal, but it's not fair. Because some departments have yearly or, been,
we're
not funded.
As a government, we have some mandated things.
We do.
Like
School
mail
system.
We have mandated things, like the tax department. They have to produce a document that says this is what your bill is. And then they have to, and they have to follow through, send the reminders and all that stuff. We can't back away from that. I don't recall exactly what the increase was, but, all the costs with the elections department, all of those costs have really doubled or more. Tim, I don't know if you have it right on the tip of your tongue or whatever, but we've had to have more poll workers and things like that. And you can't trim that because if you do, because of what we're mandated to do, they'll just come right back, 6 weeks before election time and say, we have to have this, and you can't say no because it's mandated that we provide the poll workers and whatever is required. You can't say no to that.
To clarify a little bit on the 5% that I was talking about, not only does that 5% when we come to a time like this and we have to cut something, they've already told us what they can cut or what they'd be willing to cut. But it also gets them thinking, where can I save money? The department is.
Can we save money?
And I think everybody needs to think how to become more efficient.
More efficient. Most of the time, efficiency saves money.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I will say this. A few years ago, we did that, and everybody did cut 5%.
They should be thinking about that anyway. Just because you have dollars don't mean you spend them. And just because you can ask, it doesn't mean you're going to get it either.
It was painful.
It's very painful, but there are things that we can do as a county to be more efficient. And I don't like to say save money. I like to say efficient and effective in what we do. Look at how we operate, and do it better for efficiency. That saves money. That we can take that money that we have saved and put it in those departments or those functions or initiatives that we know we have to, or we would want to. Everybody doesn't need to be funded at the same level. And everybody doesn't need to be funded the way they were funded 10 years ago. Because if you're being efficient and effective, some technology should take over sometime. Something should have kicked in and say, well, I don't have to do it that way, and I can save $10 if I do it this way, or whatever. And we have to build a culture of doing that.
It feels better when the department can manage the savings rather than when we sit here and try to cut and guess. And get, because see, what we do is we're faced with a number, an overall holistic number, and we say, hey, how can we cut some corners off of that? Whereas if the departments, I mean, they're the people on the day-to-day, if they can manage that. But the thing is, they may, if you talk to each one of them, may say, I've already done that in this budget. And then the county managers looked over it along with Ms. Outland and whoever else has been working on it, and then they've done some trimming on it already. So it's really, and I hate to say it, but it's really, would be real ambitious of us if we were able to trim it any. They've trimmed it, county manager and the staff has trimmed it.
The revenue is not there.
Say that again, please.
The revenue is not there that we want to grant everyone what they wish they or desire. It's just not there. And one of the, I'll say it again, we are forgetting about, we have to fix what's broken. And when we fix it, it has to be sustained. When we write those grants, they're going to want to see an action plan of sustaining what you say you're going to do. And that's going to cost money.
And there's some dollars in there to do that. That's why the number's up.
That's why the number's up. The money is there. It's going to hurt, but it's there. It's just that we have to be mindful that we have some infrastructure issues we have got to get straight. Like I said, they've been working on this budget since December. The school system budget is set by the state. The minimum, we have to do the minimum. The state doesn't force us to do anything but the minimum. But do we do more? Yes, we do sometimes when we have it. And I applaud the school system. Since I've been on the board, they are very, very diligent in looking at their budget. And they have to ask. You always ask. But then they come back to us and say, how about that, like he did, how about this, 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 and this? Because they know we don't have the money that they need to run the school system. We just don't. But they're very good partners and stakeholders. As a matter of fact, most of the stakeholders we have are very understanding that we just don't. And one day it's going to be that turn. If we get this right, start getting it, and get some revenue in here and some one-time grant money to take care of the stuff that we might have to take out of our coffers, it's going to get right. But right now, with inflation and the things we have broken in our infrastructure, it's going to be very difficult to do some of the things people or some of the staff or departments or stakeholders may have asked us to do, because even though it's not a prioritized budget because it wasn't set that way, we got to prioritize. We just got to. And externally, we're being forced to do it. I mean, we got some external drivers out there, and they're driving this train. We're riding it, but they're driving this train as far as some things we must do, and we don't have all year to do it. We just don't.
So going forward, we all know June 30th is coming. We have a meeting coming up. So if we go back individually and look, and we come up with a question for the county manager, what about this? And we kick that email out to the county manager. I wouldn't, again, having said everything I've said, I wouldn't anticipate a lot, if any. But the quicker we can get that to him, the quicker he can say, I've already considered that, or I will consider that, or here's my thoughts on that, and then we'll be prepared ahead of time.
Ms. Outland, will you come forth and share your cheat sheet with us? She's done some calculations since the last meeting, and she has some answers to some of the questions or concerns that we have.
So I went back and looked at July 1st of this current fiscal year to what we are proposing for July 1st for next fiscal year. Just like Dr. Riddick had stated, we have done budget amendments along the way. So me even using the July 1st number is still small because we've had so many budget amendments. One of the main differences between last year in our proposed budget, the general fund did go up $1.6 million. So I went back and I got a breakdown of why. One item is we are paying off the DSS loan that we set aside money for back in fiscal year 20. That's $467,191. That includes the pre-penalty payment and the principal to pay it off. None of that affects the tax rate for this upcoming year because it was committed funds. Where you saw fund balance appropriated, both of the two items that add up to that amount did not come out of unassigned fund balance. They were committed fund balance dollars. The other item that made up that fund balance appropriated, we just financed the radios, and that was new. So now we have a payment upcoming. And that payment with the principal and interest is $460,747. So if you're just looking at those two figures right there, they add up to about half of the 1.6, and they do not have any impact on the tax rate. The COLA, for the 5% COLA, if that's approved, that came up to $198,480. That did include FICA retirement with that, so that's salary and benefits. That would come from your taxpayer dollars. In the
It would come from where?
It would come from tax. This one doesn't have a designated revenue source.
And which one was that? I'm sorry.
The COLA, salary and benefits. Excuse me. There was a $91,534 increase in the IT expenditure line from last year to this year, and that inflated the finance admin department budget. Not knowing what the board was going to approve, I didn't go in and reallocate all those to the departments. So I was just waiting until it was approved, and then I would go back so that will bring our budget down. I know that there had been some concern about the finance and admin department budget had gone up so much. We increased the legal, $25,000. That is the same amount that we are currently budgeted at right now, but it's $25,000 more than it was July 1st of last year.
So it'd be 50,
$25,000.
okay. But I mean, did you say it would double?
No, this is going to be at the same budget level that we are currently, but July 1st, we didn't have that much in the legal line of this year. The EMS went up $162,438, and that was not their full request. So if their full request gets funded, I think it's $116,000 more we'd have to find money for. We did increase the budget for the...
Wait.
I'm sorry.
Do not say find money, allocate money.
Allocate money.
Because you're going to find some money, I want to go hunt for it right now. We can go Easter egg on it right now.
We did increase the operating budget for the community center by $26,962. That was, I think, because they've had to increase their wages for their employees.
Stop right there. Those employees, that's employee salary, right? And the school system operates that.
Correct.
That's right, so we pay their salaries.
We appropriate money
Right.
each year. We send that to the school system monthly, and then they are in charge of purchases, salary, all of that. We don't have any control.
At their discretion.
Right.
Right.
There was an increase in the revenue line for the Article 44 sales tax because we have been budgeting it very conservatively, and we've actually been getting more than what we've anticipated, and that was increased by 65,000. That has no impact on the tax rate. That's just money coming in. It's a transfer to another fund, so it has no impact. It does increase when you're looking at the total number in the budget. And the remaining amount, it was about 113,736. That was the additional positions that we added in fiscal year '22, so that would cover salary benefits for that. So all of that totals up to 1.66 million. 1,611,088, if you want the exact. So when you're looking at that right there, yes, last year may have been 17 million when we started out, and this year in this budget, we're talking about 18 million, over 18 million, a little less than 19 million. Another area, because we add up all of those funds together to come up with the total amount. Last year for our ARPA funds, because we didn't have any projects planned out yet, we only budgeted 100,000. Well, this year I went ahead and put in 500,000. That will increase the cost by 400,000, but it doesn't have any impact on the taxes. It just looks like a big figure. Another fund that increased by a very small amount is what we call the DSS payee. That's not even money in the central depository. That's something that's handled through DSS, so it has no impact on taxes. I increased the budget for our housing grants, so those are the ones that we currently still have open, more than what I budgeted for last year. I think it was 10,000 more, and that has no tax impact. And then again, the 65,000 I talked about earlier with the Article 44 sales tax, that would increase another fund because we transfer it from one and move it to another. So that right, we did have three of the funds or several of the funds that decreased. Our 911 money that we get for the PSAP, they reduced us down to 50,000, so that's 101,000 less. We're going to have to do a reconsideration in August to make sure that everything is funded for the operations of that.
May I ask what that was based on? Decline?
They do rolling averages. They do a 5-year rolling average, and that's how they come up with the amount they're going to allocate to that PSAP for that year.
So we had a good year falling off and a bad year coming.
Well, what happens is if you don't spend the money, it's never going to go up for you to get more money. So it was kind of just status quo. It's been on the operations. And you can do reconsiderations if you're going to do some big capital purchases, or kind of what we're doing right now with the upgrades. But there is a rule about you cannot carry 20% in a fund balance. And we had reached that max prior to the purchasing the upgraded equipment. But on the books right now, we still have 142,000 in fund balance as of June 30th, 21. We've spent it down this year to 7. So that's why we need to do a reconsideration, because in their mind, they're saying you can just pull it from your fund balance and operate at 100% base. So
the timing of a reconsideration, when do we have to wait till July 1 before we can even consider that?
August 31st is there are several times during the year you can do one in May. You can wait till after they send you your final letter, and then you do your reconsideration in August. It's a pretty lengthy process of what the information you have to submit. It can't be estimates. You have to show all your actual costs that you are anticipating for the year, and the difference between what you have and what you're requesting. So, but that will be done in August.
We got that marked on the calendar.
Yeah, yeah, it's in August every year. So those were, those were essentially the things that we had a few funds that decreased. We had several that increased significantly, and a lot of that did not have impact on the tax rate. And I know there was a concern about that, and the fund balance appropriated line, that's the revenue line, it doesn't say committed or unassigned. That's designated in our general ledger. So I have committed fund balance, I have unassigned fund balance. It's just I had the one revenue line, so I understand where the concern came from with that.
You answered about 8 of my questions. How about the other 8? Is there a way I can have a copy of your cheat sheet?
Yeah.
So I can-
Yep.
She gave it to me, last week? I went into her office for something else. She says, "Oh, I got something for you. It's a cheat sheet." I remember that in school. And she broke it down, and it really made sense. So going forward, next year, when we get to this point, before we get to this point, do a check, as you're working, I know you have to stop and do it, but so we understand, do a cheat sheet for us, so we can see where the money is, or the funding is
Right.
moving back and forth, and what impacts what, because it's not as simple as people think.
Right.
It's not straight line accounting, where you
No,
just
'cause
got
you-
this amount of money, and you just,
You have so many different revenue
Yeah.
streams that come in that some things are restricted, some is, the general fund is very heavily reliant on our taxes that we do collect. I mean, it is what it is. But we do have some other revenue streams that come in that they just don't match what we can generate with the taxes, unfortunately, because we're so small.
Any questions for Ms. Outland?
No questions. However, when we're talking about retirement fund, if you will, is that encumbered, that 500,000, or did I hear?
The 500,000 is in the special revenue fund for the ARPA money that we received. We haven't spent any to date, but we always try to put something in the budget to start out with, knowing that once we get going with projects or whatnot, we do a budget amendment.
So it's not
To-
encumbered, it's right there.
This is just the 2 million, I think 2.2 million in ARPA funds that the county is going to receive. We've already received one half, and then this month, gosh, it's June, we can receive our second tranche. So,
Commissioner Freeman, is that what you asked? I thought you asked about retirement.
Well, it's the fund that she was talking about, the 500,000.
Oh,
that was the ARPA grant money.
Right.
We did set aside money, maybe this is what, in the past, we did set aside that 100,000 for OPEB, which is the post-employee benefits, when we pay for health insurance for retirees when they meet the criteria. So at any point in time, we can put more towards it if we have that, or we can start pulling that money to pay for the retirees.
yeah, that's something we did last year because we have an aging workforce, and that number was going to get bigger and bigger, so we need to start stashing away money.
And we do, and of course, and I know we always account for that, and of course it is, if you will, encumbered. However, sometimes they pass. And then it's
Well,
not drawn.
the retirement money that we put to the side isn't, it did not go into a trust fund, so it's sitting in our checking account, and it's designated for that as committed fund balance. So it's not necessarily designated to a specific person, to pay for a specific person, it's just there to use for the overall cost of it, if that makes sense.
It doesn't have your name on one.
Yeah.
I think all of us would like it to.
Sure.
get everybody a copy of what you just, it's handwritten, so she
Yeah.
can, like a back of a piece of paper. But she did a good job with that.
Promise she looks better than mine.
Okay. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
Any other discussion after we heard that discussion? I know you still have your budget books, you still have the weekend to hopefully consider what's been said and done here, and contact the county manager if you have questions, or Kim and the county manager if you have questions. Don't wait till the last minute. See something, say something. But the budget, like Commissioner Owen said, taking out $10 here and $10 there is not going to get it. So.
And I know, I just want to touch on the 5% COLA, 10% COLA that's seen. Employees are in much need. We're behind the 8 ball on what we pay our employees. I've done some research looking around. On an average, we're behind the 8 ball, and this is going to help us
Close the gap.
close the gap. And there is a difference between the 5% and 10%. They were even further behind the gap. I mean, further. They were even further.
Yeah.
So I know there was a lot of questions as far as what come out, 10% for the EMS, it said COLA. They need to be brought up to speed also.
The county manager can discuss the difference in the 5% for the staff and the 10% proposal for EMS.
Yeah, that would be
Okay.
a good topic, because I know it is a topic, because when you see 10% COLA and 5% COLA,
That's 5% difference.
ooh, you know, 'cause it caught my eye at first, and then I read and checked into it a little bit, and I understand. You know, I really do understand.
So he can speak to that. That's that way. This is a discussion. You know, this is why we're here today.
Yeah.
So. let's do it.
Yeah, as I stated in the budget message, I mean, this budget, I did have a priority for this budget, and it was investing in the workforce and trying to get the salaries up. It's a brutal labor market out there right now. I mean, we lose employees. It's very difficult to recruit employees. We're in essentially bidding wars with other localities. You make a person an offer, they go back, they resign, they get a counter offer. Employee you thought you had, they're gone. You know, they deserve the pay to begin with, because in my mind, you know, many of the positions are underfunded, but it's an extremely competitive labor market out there. And, you know, we have to get these salaries up to both try to retain employees and to try to be competitive in gaining new employees. With, you know, with the rescue, I went ahead and I did support, you know, the higher, you know, COLA increase for them. You know, that is such an essential service for the county, and the wages that those people are commanding. Yeah, it would have been convenient, simple for me to say, you know, just 5% across the board, but because of the critical nature of that function, I was willing to support the 10% for that.
Could you speak to the, how can I put this? The negotiation as far as wanting to be reimbursed for loss during COVID. How did that play into that?
Yes, that was part of the EMS budget request. You know, I supported their increases in salary, which was not insignificant, and that dollar amount, as well as fuel and office supplies. But they also stated that they had lost $116,000 over the last 18 months, and they were looking for the county to pay that difference. And my simple question was, if you could connect the dot as to how, you know, either actions or inactions of the county were responsible for that loss, and that was a discussion that I'd be willing to have. But they had simply, you know, as a nonprofit, they had not generated that, and I did not see that the county had an obligation or could afford $116,000, nor did I want to start the precedent if the following year they lost $45,000, are we going to continue to, support the losses? But I did support what I consider everything moving forward for that organization. It's unfortunate that they lost money in the past, but the county has had its own tough times too. And, I was looking at trying to apply our resources, to the future and not trying to make up for another organization's prior losses, especially when none of those losses could be attributed to actions of the county.
With this ARP money, or I keep reading and we get it on our phones all the time, where organizations can apply that have been affected by COVID and lost revenue. Could not they reach out to some of those?
If they can prove.
Well, if they
You
can
gotta
prove.
have-
Yeah.
But of course, if you have less trips like for regular, maybe preventive care, where were doing that to begin with, they did a lot of transports from from our facilities to doctors and things like that. And of course, when everything closed down, those revenues stopped. So I would think you could prove it, but you've got to do the paperwork, and they're not going to just drop you a check. You've got to,
It has
fill out.
tightened.
And that was part of the problem,
Yeah.
is they dropped checks for the first 6 months, 8 months without any accountability. Now they're backing up, and they'll say, from here forth, we're
Right.
going to be accountable. But those first 6 months, that was what everybody described as free money. That was true.
Right.
so I think that they did.
And they may have exhausted that. I don't know, but that.
Well, we need to ask, have they, done the paperwork to be reimbursed or for their losses due to COVID? Because of the closing of doctor's offices and elective surgeries and everything else. I mean, it's a revenue source.
And of course, talking about budgeting while we're here and things we've already looked into, such as Roanoke Connect, how much is this inflationary status that's going on going to affect us and them with broadband?
I have a meeting in 2 weeks I have a meeting in about a couple of weeks to look at that. They have not, what have they done? They have vetted all the great grant applications. And during this week, they're revisiting them, and each one of the broadband providers have an opportunity to challenge someone's territory or area that they have. And I think that's due on Friday. So it's a process. Once that's done, it goes back to the state level, I do believe federal level, whatever it is, and they will select the providers for each one of the counties or the areas in the county, because we had two. We had Roanoke Connect, and we had
CenturyLink, but it's not that.
Brightspeed. I couldn't remember. Brightspeed. They're morphing into Brightspeed. So we have two. And I looked at the list. It came to the county manager. He forwarded it to me. And I looked at the list, and it looked correct to me. And I heard from Roanoke Connect said it looked fine with them. So they're going on to one of the stages now. And we should know in August or early September about who's going to be doing what. But I believe this inflation is part of what they, how you do a bid, but you put more in than what you actually, think you're going to spend. But that's across the United States. So we're just going to wait in North Carolina to see what's going to happen with that. But right now, we're on track. When I looked at our data, it looked, just like we put it in there. They wanted us to check and let them know if anything was not accurate. And I will be calling on Commissioner Craddock to help with the next stage when that selection is made. Remember, I asked in December if he would help with broadband, and so it's about time for us in Gates County to start ratcheting it up so we can start seeing some movement, probably August, September, something like that. But I'll keep check on that. That's a good question.
And I wondered if it would affect us, and certainly what the county manager brought to our attention too is, you know, the lack of being able to find employees, the labor market, and then we voted on the fact that it would be done by a certain time.
I think they're going to stick to it. I think they have already planned for that. They have their own workforce. Anyway, it's an electrical company, you know, they provide electricity, Renault Electric. And that was one of the questions we had, because even FMAL Commission is building a database of workforce, work skills. They are trying to build it region-wide because a lot of the counties cannot find skilled labor, water, wastewater, broadband, you name it, carpenters, electricians, you just can't. Especially certified people with certifications, they just cannot. And young people are not stepping up and going into those fields. But FMAL Commission is working on it, and North Carolina Rural Center is also working on trying to supply or make sure that we have, all the counties have access to the labor we need to get the infrastructure done. A grant does you no good if nobody can do the work.
And when we were doing broadband, I mean, some of the problems we already knew about, inflation, we had seen was starting to creep in and all that, so I think they took that into account. And I think
Yeah,
the state
we just didn't vote on that. We didn't vote on that aspect at the time. I didn't think about it as we were voting. And then as we appropriated money for them, if it's not done in the year that they said, do we get a portion of that back?
If you look at the agreement we signed, all of that is in there. It's about a 4 or 5 page document, and we did vote on that whole total package. It wasn't we vote on this part of it and not page 2. It's a whole package that we voted on, and we signed it, and they know they're under the gun. That's why we did it that way, because in the past, we didn't have anything to go back on them with. You know, they either did it or they didn't. We were sitting here and money gone and no broadband. Now we got an agreement, it's been signed, it's been vetted, signed, and they know that if they do not, then there's going to be some legal impact that they don't want. And that's why we did it that way, because in the past, the providers did not do, not all of them, that's not inclusive, all inclusive. They did not do what they said. They got millions of dollars, and they were not held accountable for those millions of dollars. And the millions of dollars went somewhere, and and then come back and ask for some more money. No. So that's why we did it that way. That's why we did those agreements. So we're hopeful and prayerful that, you know, going forward, we have some accountability. And that's what Commissioner Craddock is going to be tasked with. Remember I told you we had our broadband action team? That's what I'm going to task him to do in the near future, is to get a broad-based citizenry to sit on that broadband action team. And they're going to hold them accountable. You're going to have steps you're going to have to follow, and quarterly, or more often if we so choose to engage county, what are you doing? Where are you? I haven't seen a truck lately, you know, digging anything or whatever. So it's very structured this time. It's not this, you know, they apply for the money, get the money. We don't know where the money is, and people still complaining they don't have broadband. 5 years later.
We're all presence of mind enough to know that it's not done intentionally. Mm-hmm. So we need to, you know, certainly we have that in our mind thought, but know that Renault Connect did not intentionally cause this, but I do believe it's going to be an issue.
Well, if it's an issue, I'm quite sure that Mr. Craddock will let us know, and let Captain Davidson and Marshall Cherry know, who is the CEO of Renault Connect. And I think we'll just motor right along and stop looking back. We look back to remember what not to do and what happened, but we don't go back there and stay. We have to move forward with trust in our new stakeholders. So, Commissioner Craddock, you'll be hearing from me in a couple of weeks to, yeah.
Not yet. One other question. I know we broke the Telecommunications Act this year. Is the capital outlay still under EM?
Telecommunications is part of emergency management.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, but, okay, all right. I just wanted to make sure.
Kim, do you have any questions for us, or you understand what we're asking you and the county manager to do? County manager, you understand that we're just discussing broadly some ideas, but I think we've answered the questions we had thus far. Probably have some more next week, But if you have questions, please don't wait. Just ask before the board meeting next Wednesday at 5:30. You'll receive your board packets Friday. And in that board packet, you're going to see all those amendments that we've been talking about. That money that was not in the budget, but now we have to pay for it. And that's what you're going to see. When the budget is passed, it's balanced and sent to the state, wherever it goes. And anything you do after July 1st is a budget amendment. That's what a budget amendment is. If it's not in this past budget and something else happened like we did last year, we had all these things that happened and people asked for things and we granted it, you have to, if it's a recurring cost, if it's a position and we approve that cost after July 1st, that's a budget amendment. When we do a budget amendment, that recurring cost is in there. They keep it for the next year, the next fiscal year. I'm looking at Kim. We have to keep it in there. We have to vote to keep it in there. And we have to pay for it. But budget amendment, you have to pay for it. You got to get that money from something. You know if that thing is found money. So if you had a position put in last year's budget after July 1st, we voted to keep it in there, it's going to cost. It wasn't in the last year's budget. That's a budget amendment. And if it's recurring cost, that probably going to hit your what? Property taxes. That's how we pay for things. If it's non-recurring, we allocate it from another fund or fund balance or something. You don't want a recurring cost to come out of your fund balance. You don't want to do that because it's a recurring cost.
Sure.
You might could do it temporarily, but that's not a good practice to do that because it eats up, a recurring cost. Salaries are recurring costs.
You classify that as an emergency.
The emergency, that's right.
That's what fund balance is, and then LGC
And
looks at that
they
number
look
very
at that,
hard.
But if you put anything, once we pass this budget, on recommendation by the county manager and his team, anything we do after July 1st is a budget amendment. You just don't go in there and move stuff, don't tell anybody. Kim's not going to do it for one thing, county manager's not going to let her do it for another, because it has to be amended. That's why the superintendent was here. He's amending his budget. You just don't do it. And the only way you can take it out, decrease it, you don't fund it for next year. And I don't think anybody want to do that. You don't want to give somebody a job last year and take it away this year. The next year, you keep it in there. So we made a decision, whatever was in that amendment, that's what we did. The only alternative, take it out. Because it has to be paid for. And the only revenue we have to pay for recurring costs, not the only one. Because sometimes you get grant-funded positions, things like that. I'm not talking about grants and all this other stuff. I'm just talking about the budget and property taxes. That's what happens across all counties. It's nothing new. It's just people don't understand. And we have money in this budget from everywhere. I wish we had more. Appropriations, we got grants, all kinds of money, and it's all allocated somewhere, but it comes together to make up your budget. So it's not like a balance sheet where you look at assets and liabilities and you balance it. That's one of the reasons I don't touch somebody else's budget until I talk to them, because I don't know what they've done, and it's their budget. And they know where they're getting the money from, and they may have asked for money. Some people ask for money, and they know they think they're going to get it. Please don't spend money until you get it. Don't.
Well, you can't,
Don't do that.
legally.
So any questions you have, ask the county manager or Ms. Outland sooner than later, and prayerfully they can come back with the budget recommendation that we can get through this next year. But inflation is not a pretty thing. It's just not. And we have so many needs we have to. I keep saying it because I want people to hear it. We are trying to fix what you asked us to fix. 911, wastewater, and water. We're having issues, and it's long-term back, and so we're trying to fix it. And to fix it, we got to spend money. And those budget amendments, when you see them, it's a page. I'm like, gracious. But we have to spend the money. You can't fix it on a wing and a prayer. And when we fix it, we're going to have to continue to sustain it. So look out for more costs, and hope, and prayerfully, we can get some one-time dollar to do some of this stuff. If not, we're going to have to do some other things to do. We're going to Raleigh on Tuesday to Assembly Day, Commissioner Hoffman and myself, and we're going to do some asking of our legislators in person. You know,
Knocking on doors.
knock it on the door. If you don't ask, you won't get it. Golden Leaf was here this morning to talk with us. They said they haven't funded anything in Gates County since 2011. They have a new president, CEO, and he brought his external affairs person with him. Good conversation. I just want to thank the county manager how he handled the meeting. Jack was supposed to be there, but he got stuck at work. But Tim did a very good job of telling our story. And he was so wrapped up in everything today, he couldn't take him to the property. I took him. I don't know how good I did, but I took them. And they were impressed to see where, you know, our vision. He talked about the vision, they saw it. I did not want them to leave this county without seeing what we had done as commissioners. And they asked me to tell the commissioners that they applaud them for their vision in that corridor and what we could probably do in the next 30 to 40 years. They were very impressed. So we're going to ask for appropriations, citizens. We're going to try not to raise your property tax, but if we do, it's for your own good, like medicine. Yeah, I said it. I don't know where else to get the money. I meaning the commissioners. It's just not me. It's us up there. Hopefully we can cut the pain, but things got to be done. Are there any more questions or comments before I ask for adjournment? County manager, have anything else to say?
No, Madam Chair. Other than there is consensus by the board to fully fund and incorporate the 70,000 requested by the school system and the 9,225 from the animal shelter. That's correct.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Good enough.
Do we need to take a vote?
No, no.
That'll be next week when we look at the budget, hopefully for the last time, and then go forward in good faith. So I ask, if no other questions or comments or concerns, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
It's been motion to adjourn and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. We are adjourned.
Yeah, can you give us that sheet before we leave? Okay, we'll stop by your office. Okay.
You also have a